How are you today?
I'm doing great, Natalie. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. We are here to film another episode of Cracking the Code, specifically in relation to celebrating National Cybersecurity Awareness Month as we approach the 20-year anniversary of the Awareness Month in October here.
It's
So I'm
cause for
wondering,
huge celebrations. I mean, parties in the streets. We're going to be, you know, green beer, whatever we need to do to celebrate this. Should we start over?
absolutely. But it's interesting that you say that though, because while it's not a super sensational topic and it's not something that people are out there celebrating, it's hugely important. And so I'm wondering if you could share a little bit just about cybersecurity and how the threat landscape has changed recently. There's been a lot of new innovation, a lot of new advancements, and specifically in the realm of healthcare. So wondering if you could touch on how that threat landscape has changed.
It's interesting. I listened to the Sam Altman, not Sam Walton, Sam Altman hearings, and that was just a few months ago. Since then, we have seen a barrage of incredibly new applications that we can use on our iPhones. I've even played around with some AI generated photos that have made me laugh really hard, and just having a lot of fun with some of the new enhancements. On the flip side of the fun, it's gotten a little bit more dangerous if you think about how our identities are now able to be mimicked or replicated visually and from a voice perspective. We've all heard the funny, jokes that we hear on Instagram or some of those other platforms around, Donald Trump and Joe Biden having a conversation together. Those are fake, but what we're going to start to see as this election cycle heats up is nobody's going to really know the truth. And that was one of the things that was brought up in the hearings. From a healthcare perspective, you're seeing health systems, payers, health tech companies innovate very quickly using some of the AI that we've seen. I don't want to make this all about AI, but that's one of the drivers of some of the landscape that's changed. We're seeing the bad guys as well get more brazen in their attacks on healthcare, using certain tools like write code for me that says this is how I can exploit some vulnerabilities in this hospital's applications. So we're seeing all kinds of changes in the threat landscape. I'll give you one more, and then we'll cut back over to you, Natalie, because I know you have a bunch of great questions. If we think about ransomware, we think about extortionware, we're starting to also see some patterns where the victim is not just the hospital. We've all believed that the victim is the person, but the bad guys are ratcheting it up a notch by simply taking the data that they have stolen from a health system and then going after the individual directly to try to extort and do extortion tactics with an individual patient. And that's terrifying. And you've also seen some of the demonstrations of what bad can happen if AI is used incorrectly or if certain vulnerabilities aren't addressed in a timely fashion. One more. I know I promised I'd cut back to you.
No,
One more. We also have a massive number of outdated operating systems now. October 10th was the end of life for Windows Server 2012. And if companies or organizations haven't swapped those out, they are in dire need of finding some way to support those outdated operating systems, because that's where the bad guys are going to go next. In fact, they've been going there for a long time, but now it becomes a feeding frenzy, if you will.
Right. So tech is not really keeping up with tech in a way. And so can we focus here a little bit on what employees can do within the healthcare realm in terms of training? And I think that we assume it's so easy. I'm not going to give into a phishing attack. I know what those look like now. I go through these employee trainings, but clearly they work. We've seen them work. So can you discuss the role of employee training a little bit and maybe some additional steps companies can do within these, and in terms of preventative measures? Are you testing within your own? Are you running these tests? Are you doing employee trainings in kind of a different way? So I'm just curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, you're talking about phishing.
Phishing, yeah, specifically
Yeah,
social engineering in this context. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, do you really know what a phishing attack looks like? Because the bad guys can now use AI to regenerate a phishing attack
Mm-hmm.
5 times a minute and to deploy it across your organization. So you have to batten down the hatches. You have to put additional controls in place to prevent certain domains or certain IP addresses or certain patterns from ever hitting your organization. You're going to need to really think about the training, especially when you start to see the QR code attacks, where you'll get an email, it'll say click your, put your phone here
Mm-hmm.
to, preserve your password or to delay whatever reset you have to do. An employee that is not versed in some of those tactics will just simply do that, and then they've infected their iPhone or their whatever system that they're on. It's very scary. If I am an employee of a company that has outdated operating systems, I'm going to start to talk to my management and say, why do we have outdated operating systems?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we still using those? And what plans are afoot to make sure that we have adequate support for that grace period where I can buy expensive support and patches? It's soon going to be unsupported entirely. The other thing is it's not just a Windows problem, although largely it's a Windows problem. We also know that Ubuntu and Linux-based systems are highly attacked as well. I mean, they're targeted and successfully exploited a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, as an employee in a company, if you see something, say something is really what I'm advocating for.
No, I mean that was my next question is what, how can they employees contribute to the overall, cybersecurity, not just keeping your own individual laptops secure. And the personal security within a company means that the broader company is secure as well. But I'd like to, and obviously these two things are related, but I'd like to switch the conversation a little bit to personal digital hygiene. So something separate from work. And if we're secure in our personal digital hygiene, that helps our network as well. So there are a lot of different tools, and especially with the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, NIST has released some tips and tools in terms of multi-factor authentication. But there are just so many different things now. If you sign up, you subscribe to emails, links to unsubscribe, all that kind of stuff. So you recently posted something about your 4 favorite tips, and you referenced NIST and some of those favorite ones there. But can you talk a little bit about passwords and maybe how frequently individuals should change them? And I realize this is a very basic conversation, but I think it's important just from a digital hygiene standpoint to kind of reverse back and say, what can I be doing on a day-to-day basis? Because these breaches are clearly still happening. And there are things that I think that are easy to overlook because they are so basic.
Yeah, I mean, if you could use a 4-digit password on every account using the same password, that would be heaven, right? I'm kidding. We should never do that. Mm-hmm. But that's what happens. If you think about the many passwords that you should have, and you think about how inconvenient it is to have to remember 15 different passwords, or in my case, hundreds, you start to wonder, how can I do this faster? How can I, where's my mouse pad that I hide my passwords? And we used to do security risk assessments a lot. That was the first place I would look for passwords, and I would find them every single time. But that hasn't changed over time. As we continue to use more applications, we need more passwords. Use a good password keeper. That's a simple thing. Subscribe to one. We see vendors, we see subcontractors sometimes do really dumb things. Not necessarily in our company per se, although that happens sometimes. But if you keep a password list in an Excel document that says passwords, guess where I'm going to go hunt first? I'm going to go find that list, and I'm going to use it to mess up your life. And people do this all the time, even professionals in the industry. So yeah, have some hygiene about it. Have some rotation policies. Change the password once in a while. eBay started to get hacked a lot, so they've done a good job that says, hey, we haven't changed your password for a while. Go change your password.
Right.
So
Well, I just got the notification for our company, right?
Yes.
To, this is expired, time to restart it and all that kind of stuff. So I'm wondering in terms of a password manager, because there are so many out there. There are so many different versions of every single different type of service that we can use. What are some of your personal favorites?
Well, I used to like LastPass, but it's been hacked a few times. So I actually use 1Password,
Okay.
and it synchronizes things between my iPhone and my Mac. And it also looks for passwords that have been leaked on the dark web, and it tells me when I should rotate. And it's a big stark warning.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Some of our customers use that as well. I know there's a bunch of different kinds. People like to use the browsers for the password management. I'm going to say, please don't do that. Please don't ever do that. Chrome touts its password management in its browser. I don't know. I'm maybe a little old school, but when you put your keys to the front door under the front doormat and say, don't look there, we've got this, it's hidden, it's just a little too close.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what about cookies on browsers? We've got
that's a topic near and dear to my heart.
Okay.
Don't accept all of them. There's no reason you need to accept all of them. It's a pain to say, well, let me go check on my cookie preferences. But some of those cookies that are built in there will track you forever, for the rest of your digital life on that browser. So be selective. Make sure that you only select the cookies that you need, if you have to at all. And my preference is don't accept any, but sometimes you actually have to have functional cookies. The other point is, if you go to a website and it doesn't give you the options to control your cookie intake, get off the website. Clearly, it doesn't have the sophistication level necessary to allow you to choose and be informed of what you're getting on your browser. Plain and simple.
Okay, thank you. And one thing that you've mentioned in the past, and you've written about too in a recent blog, is multi-factor authentication, two-factor versus multi versus all that kind of stuff. And I know that it adds additional steps, but I think there's also kind of a misconception that it's not as secure. And is this text message then real? Because we're getting a lot of text messages these days that are, socially engineered. So what are your thoughts on multi-factor authentication?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit first about text. If I don't know the text, I won't click on it. Plain and simple. Yeah, because that's another attack vector. I would say multi-factor authentication doesn't have to be hard. There are little tools you can use. Google Authenticator. There's just a whole bunch of a whole folder full of them, because every company has a different multi-factor protocol, if you will. But yeah, definitely use multi-factor. Even if there's a code that was sent to your phone, use the code to do that. I mean, there's just a lot of ways to do multi-factor, but you never want to have just one way to get into your systems, especially. I would also be very leery of using a debit card.
Okay. Can you say more about that?
Well, I mean, if you think about the liability of a credit card issuer, I think they're liable for everything over $50. If someone grabs your debit card number and happens to have your PIN, you could drain a bank account pretty quickly with very little liability or protection to cover yourself.
Certainly, yeah. Thank you. The last thing I wanted to touch on too is software updates, and just hardware updates, software updates, and all that kind of stuff, because it feels like there's a Chrome browser update, and some people don't want to use maybe Safari or some of the older browsing services or anything like that. Wondering if you could share your thoughts. I mean, obviously, regular updates and keeping your systems safe and secure is important, but wondering if you could discuss exactly why, because it's not just to get the newest, latest, and greatest, fastest, click with an update. There's a lot to it, and there are reasons why companies do it and enforce it and run it through systems.
Yeah, if you look at the vast majority of updates, the critical ones are usually because of a security issue. There's this concept called a 0-day vulnerability. 0 day means there have been 0 days between the point in time you have found the vulnerability and the time that you have remediated it. You're still on day 0. So that's when bad guys have a great time of just going to town on some of those vulnerabilities. So you'll see urgent ones that'll come out. Don't ignore those. Make sure that you restart that Chrome browser. There's been obviously some kind of a threat that's out there. So make sure it gets updated. Update your operating systems on a regular basis. Microsoft has a lot of patches on every Tuesday. And, don't ignore those.
Mm-hmm.
Mac has some as well, not nearly as many, but yeah, I would never ignore the updates.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I know that there are a lot of other tips, and we could probably speak for a very long time on this topic, but, as this month goes by, and I know every month has a lot of, really important celebrations, but this is one that probably shouldn't just have 1 month dedicated to it and should be an ongoing process and initiative of different people. So thanks for sharing your insights. And
you're welcome. I would say, I think my favorite holiday this month, because there's like a holiday every single day, at least I'm learning about, was the Wire Your Daughter Money Day. I guess that's a real thing. Probably got scammed on that one myself.
I'm going to say, I hope you didn't fall for that one, maybe. I don't know. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I think we have a really exciting one coming up, cracking the code with another colleague at ClearDATA. So I'm looking forward to that. But thank you as always for your time.
Thanks, Natalie.